A process that we often see in companies is the exchange of documents via online portals. Often we get an email from our business partner notifying us for a new document, like for example a purchase order notification in this case. So by opening up the email, I only get a purchase order reference number and a link to the partner portal. And here in the partner portal, I need to log in, providing my credentials, and then search for the new purchase order by browsing to the order section and search for the order number. So it's not located in page 1, and this often these kind of portals are quite basic. So in this case, I don't have a search feature, so I need to browse to page 3 until I find the purchase order number that I'm looking for. Then clicking on the link here will download the purchase order as an Excel document, and now I can see the full details of the order, including the line items. What I now need to do is to enter the order details into my own backend system, and for this demonstration I have here a Customer 360 application, which is my backend, and I'm logging into this application, and now I'm entering the data into my backend by copying, pasting all the data line by line to this backend. So this is the kind of manual tasks that we are seeing quite often, and which I will demonstrate how we solve this process using Kapow robotics. Okay, after I've entered the data, I need to go back to the partner portal and provide feedback that I've accepted this order. I provide an expected delivery date and my vendor reference. And this completes then the manual process. Let's have a look how we solved this problem with Kapow. First of all, we are having a look at the Design Studio. So the Design Studio, here at the top is the workflow editor, which contains action steps that are executed in design mode. Opening the load page, executing the load page action step will open the partner portal page into the embedded Kapow browser, and with this Kapow browser I can interact with the user interface by making a selection. So you see the screen border. I can expand the screen border or make it smaller again, and then right-clicking the selection I can decide what kind of action to apply to this selection. In this case I want to enter a username and password I've already prepared as a variable. These kind of variables are added with the Kapow Design Studio type editor, and it's quite easy, straightforward to create all kinds of data structures to use as a variable in a robot. So the next what I need is to enter the password and then clicking on the login button. And as you noticed here at the top, by doing this, by interacting with the user interface, the 3 more action steps have been added: enter username, enter password, and click login. And they have immediately be executed. That means that it is an execution during design time. So while I'm interacting with the user interface, the action steps are added to the workflow editor. So now I need to browse to the order section, and here I see the table containing the list of orders on that website, and here I can make a selection for one row and apply, for example, a loop to iterate over each row. And as next I can click on this link. This will download the Excel and I can view and work with the Excel data in the Kapow Design Studio as well. So let's pick View as Excel. So now I'm able to interact with the data in the same way as I was able to interact with the user interface. And this is another powerful feature of Kapow, that it's not only visualizing user interfaces, it's also visualizing data. So here, for example, I can define a marker for this text total. And the step for this is called set named range. And having this marker defined, I can then define an extraction of a value relative to this marker. And this makes me independent of any structural changes inside this Excel document. So these were just a couple of examples that should demonstrate how easy it is to design a robot in Design Studio by interacting with the user interface and interacting with data. So to give you an overview of the action steps that we have available, there are more than 100 action steps that can be used to create any kind of workflow, database activities, file system activities, working with structured data, read and write Excel, etc. and so on. So a broad range of functionality included here already in Design Studio. Let's get back to our problem introduced at the beginning. So we have seen that as first we need to monitor an email inbox. So as first we are logging into Outlook and inspect for new emails. So we have this little loop here that goes over each email. So I can test this loop by clicking on the buttons. And this test step is then looking if this is a new email. The next step is a click email, and then this will open up the email in the browser. And here I can extract the purchase order reference. And in this group here, you see kind of a conditional logic that is testing for several business partners, because we could have more than one business partner, of course. And here we are inspecting the sender email address by using a regular expression pattern. If that is partner A or partner B, it is not, it's partner T1 Enterprises, and only if it's T1 Enterprises, this branch here is executed. So this is a kind of a if-else scenario. So in this case, we have detected that we're working with T1 Enterprises. We extract the purchase order reference number, then into our purchase order reference number variable. So here we have this variable. So the next step, it's a very special step because it's calling a second robot. And this second robot will then go to the partner portal, download the Excel, extract the data, opening up our Customer 360 application on a desktop and entering the data into this desktop application. It's taking the purchase order number reference as an input. And when I click to the next step, it will actually start this robot on the server. So before I do this, let me first move my desktop into the screen that you can watch this. Clicking on the next step will start the robot on the server. The robot now first goes to the partner portal, downloads the Excel, extracts the data, and then opens the Customer 360 applications on the desktop to enter the data. After the process is completed, the internal reference will be extracted and returned back to the robot. So as a result, what we can see here is an XML of the header data of the purchase order. Now let's have a closer look at the second robot that was just triggered via the call REST web service step. So this is the robot number 2, which is logging into the partner portal and browsing to the orders. So the browse to the orders is using a search that is trying to find the purchase order that we provide in the input. And on page 3, we found that purchase order number, as we can see here, that is highlighted in orange. So we're then downloading the Excel sheet and opening the Excel sheet in the Kapow browser. We define a range of named tags to identify the values that we are looking for. So we identified field total, field subtotal, etc. and so on. So this will help us in the next group of steps to extract the values relative to these markers. So here, for example, on the extract total, we can see that we are using the range total as a marker and applying the offset 1, which will give us the value here. So after we have extracted the data here into our variable, into our data structure for the purchase order, we are using the device automation action step, providing the data as an input variable. And let's have a closer look at the device automation editor. So this is device automation editor that you can see. And here we have the content of the desktop. So you can easily see if I do any changes here on my VM, it will immediately be reflected in the device automation editor. So we have the same sort of a visual paradigm, so I can visually interact with elements on that desktop by clicking on it and by choosing from a choice of actions to apply to the selection. So let's first opening up the Customer 360 application. So this is now performing the steps to enter username, press a tab key, enter password, press a tab key and click the logon button. And then we have the application open, and in the next group of steps we are entering the purchase order header details. So having done this, we can continue in our robots. So first we're adding the purchase order header data, then we are looping through the line items. So we have this loop defined here in the robot. We have a little test for blank cells because we don't want to process these blank lines here. And then we can iterate over this selection. And as we iterate, we can watch on the desktop that each line item is being added as we go along. So then clicking here at the return results step will then trigger the loop to go through the end and enter all line items, and then finally extract the new purchase order reference number and closing the application on the desktop again. Okay, so we can continue to go through the next phase, which is going back to T1 Enterprises again, calling the next robot via web service. And this, the purpose of this is then to go back to the partner portal and provide feedback. So let's have a brief look at the robot number 3. That is again going to the partner portal. So we have this group of steps in a snippet. So this is the group that does the login. So we can reuse such kind of snippets among different robots. And then again searching for the purchase order number as we did before. And here clicking on the status link to update the details, and the details they are depending on whether or not we have accepted the the order. And here we have a little kind of a translation. So our status accepted is a status in progress on our partners portal, and cancelled is equal cancelled. And using such converters, we can easily manipulate and translate this kind of data. So we have a whole range of different data converters available for all kind of data manipulation, starting from simple text replacement to advanced techniques using regular expression, number formatting, date handling, and different other conversion types. Every kind of data manipulation that you might need as you go along and extract or insert data. So then we're setting the expected delivery date and update the date field, and finally click Save and validate the update, and this will complete the process. So then we can watch that full process by running the first robot in debug mode. So let's quickly do this. So it's switching to debug mode, and we can see then that is in a second starting on the desktop again. So we are at the part that the robot number 2 is called, providing again the purchase order data into our backend system. And then after that's done, extracting the new purchase order reference number, going back to the partner portal, and providing feedback. This completes our demonstration how we solved this problem of manual data entry into all kind of backend systems. So the system presented here is just an example system. That can be any kind. It can be Oracle or SAP or whatever you might think of. And it showed you how we connected to email via Outlook webmail, and how we connected to web portals using our built-in browser.